right, welcome back to What Do You Want? I have my good friend here, MD Nazir. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You know, what I like to do is I like to work with high achievers and really pick apart their mindset, what got them from where they are to where they want to go, so we can help all of the people watching really create a massive jump. And now, MD has two businesses that are flourishing. He has Sunrise Multifamily Group and Stay Classy. They're very different businesses.
Yes.
And you know what I'd like you to do, MD, tell them a little bit about your story, where you started, and how you started your first business, how old you are, so they understand what got you from where you were to where you are now.
All right, so I think it's more of it starts from like a character thing. I grew up in a lower class family, so humble beginnings. So it all started from like, how do I become relevant? Like, I'm irrelevant in a sense in the broad world. My family's irrelevant. How do I go out there and become relevant? And usually that goes by going to work and making some money. So first thing was getting out of the house. I went to work with my dad starting from the age of 8. Every weekend I went to work. I knew how to stay busy. From there, I knew how to barter cash, be at the register, know how money works. I'm not uncomfortable around it. Also, I built all my negotiation skills from my mother. She was a tough woman. You couldn't go here, you couldn't go here, you couldn't go here. But I knew that if I did my chores, did my religious studies, did my homework, those are the things that she cares about. So put her in a position where she can't say no. So that's where I learned all my negotiation skills. But long story short, I started, when I left my dad, he couldn't pay me enough by the time I got to 13. So I said, Dad, can I get my own job? And I got my own job. I started working in the mall. We were on government assistance, so I couldn't make money on paycheck because the government would find out. So my dad would just like, make your money under the table and you can do whatever you need to. So I went to the mall, classic place to go if you want to work under the table. And I got this job at this, I went to go apply to this shoe company because this immigrant family owned it, and I thought that they would connect with me and give me an under the table job. They ended up saying, no, you're not even 16. I was 15 at the time. So then I came back to my cousin who worked in the mall, and he said, hey, I know the guy next to me. He's hiring. I could put a good word for you. And it was this cart where they sold like t-shirts and stickers and stuff. I didn't know anything about it. So my cousin went there and told him like, hey, you want another version of me? Well, my cousin's the closest thing you can find. So he gave me a job. I had a broken hand. I was 15. I didn't have a car. I took the trolley to work. But that was my first under the table job. I ended up working really hard for this guy, and he kept telling me that if I ever not need this business, I'll sell it to you. And 2 years later, I was still in high school, senior year. He ended up selling it to me. And so that ended up being my first business that I ever bought. It was a graphics cart in the mall. From there, after high school, I was studying engineering, but I quickly realized that I was more of an entrepreneur. I liked the freedom. I liked the ability to earn as much as I wanted to. Like, how much effort I put in is a direct correlation of how much I earn. But if you work in corporate America, like, you hit caps, right? And my personality doesn't do well with that. So anyway, I started that company. From there, I got a taste of entrepreneurial mind. And that entrepreneurial mind is, sometimes you create something new. Sometimes you find something that someone else is doing, and you just try to do it better. And that's how my entrepreneurial mind works. I'm not as creative as creating a fresh, brand new business. I just have the confidence seeing someone do something, I'm like, I can do it better than them. So that's how I started my second company, which is called Stay Classy, like you mentioned earlier. It's called Stay Classy Black Car Service. I started that because my dad was a taxi driver. I wanted to start something for him that was a little cleaner and more professional. So I ended up looking in the black car service industry. This is pre-Uber in 2011. From there, I had great success. I needed a place to park my money. All the clients that were driving around were worth 50 million, 100 million. I wanted to know how to get there, so I asked them. They were all investors, or they were specifically investing in real estate, commercial real estate. So you know how the universe works. If you ask questions, it gives you answers. 5 years after that, I started investing in real estate, and then I convinced one of the guys that worked at the firm to spin off and start a firm with me, and that's how I started Sunrise Multifamily Group.
Now, this is interesting because you said something that really intrigues me. You started asking questions to people that have already performed the results you wanted to create. A lot of people don't do that. I don't understand it. That's what I did too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are too shy. They think, oh, they're too successful to talk to me.
True.
And I always say you want to find somebody who's performed the results or lived the type of life you want to live and pick their brain because they want to give you the answers. And now, was that your experience?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I've always been pretty good asking people because I think that they could feel my energy and my aura that I was asking intentionally. I wasn't just asking to ask, but I did do it. But to your point, I even wish that I would have done it more, right? It's a shortcut. They've already have that path. Why guess your way to where you're trying to go when you can ask a mentor who's already specifically done it and they just teach you that path, right? The example that someone once gave me that I use a lot now is like, when you get in a car, you don't say, okay, I have a destination to go. Let me just take a couple random turns and hopefully I get there, right? You have a location, you know how you're gonna go there, and then your GPS shows you. That's what a mentor does. It tells you, hey, over here make this turn, over here make that turn, and then you save a lot of time.
So did you go to college?
I did.
Did you finish?
I did.
You did? Where'd you go?
I went to San Diego State and I got my degree in mechanical engineering.
Okay, so you grew up in San Diego most of your life.
Yes.
Now you live in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yes.
And give them a little understanding of the type of courage it took. You know, from when you got into really an entrepreneur, really a senior year of high school, to now having multiple seven-figure businesses and growing. What was, if you look back, because I always look back for me, and I had to bet on myself. I always say that. That was for me, and I think everybody does who goes out to the unknown. But what was that like for you, the type of courage?
You know, it's different when you don't have a safety net, right? So I always tell people, as I joke with some of my friends who come from like, their parents are well off and they've worked hard. I'm like, you know, you can't lose that because you don't know what the other side of that feels like. I know what the other side of that feels like. So, and it's not that bad, but because I've been there, I can go all out and potentially lose it all, but I know what that feels like. So for me, it was a little easier because I didn't have the safety net. Easier in the sense where I had to go out and figure it out. There was no plan B, and there's no plan B. You figure it out. But as far as like the businesses go, like, you know, when you start young, you have more time to fail. When you that's why I didn't really like spend too much time dating, or I didn't want to get married young. And I think those are all beautiful things. But for me, being successful was the only option. It wasn't just for me; it was for my entire family. And so I started young at 17, and I made a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes, but I had more time to make mistakes. I didn't start my first business when I was 30, 35, 40, where I have maybe potentially a wife or a kid. So I think that starting young allowed me to make more mistakes and allowed me to, you know, kind of fail forward, as they say. But as far as the courage goes, you know, you have to, the desire to want to be great has to be stronger than the fear of failure. I think that if you have that, you don't even think of the fear of failure. As long as it's like 1% more than the fear of failure, you won't even think about the failure part. It'll be all about the desire of being successful.
Oh, I agree with you. I think you have to want success as badly as you want to breathe.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's interesting when you're talking about failure, now I know you, and I know you have a great relationship with it. I think every successful person does.
Yeah.
The people who are willing to fail are the ones that win.
Yes.
And I mean win in the biggest way.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about your failures. You made a lot of failures, I call them mistakes.
Yes, yes.
So when you were doing them, were you beating yourself up or were you using them as learning?
Yeah, so when I made my mistakes, one thing that's part of my identity, like the way, I don't linger on the problem for that long. So like you make a mistake, it's a free feedback loop. Like a mistake, like even when you play basketball, I play basketball. When you shoot that shot, if you make it, sometimes that gives you no feedback on what you did. Right. But if you miss that shot and it hits off the front rim, you're like, oh, shoot it higher. Yeah. Or if it goes off the right, okay, my elbow is not correct. Yeah. So I treat like my mistakes in business the same exact way. It's a free feedback loop. That's why I love business. It's like, if people give you money, you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing something right. Like I have a product or a service that people want, and how do they tell me that? By paying me for it. So I love business, and I love mistakes in business because those are, if you don't have a mentor yet, those are the coaching that you'll get from the mistakes you're doing. But you can't linger on the problem that much and be defeated when it happens. You have to be focused on, okay, what is this problem telling me? Spend most of your energy correcting it, and then you won't be that defeated by your mistakes.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think if the masses learned what failure does for you, it's so much for you rather than to you.
Yeah.
It teaches you so many lessons. I can look at my mistakes, my quote unquote failures, all my losses. You don't learn from your wins, you learn from your losses.
Yeah.
Because you've learned from your losses, you create the biggest wins.
Yes.
And every successful person understands this. One of the fallacies is people want to create success, and a lot of people will correlate money to success.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake is people who chase money
Yeah.
instead of pursuing greatness.
Yes.
Like you said, how can I get better?
Yeah.
What would you say to that from your experience?
Well, at first I'd say that, for a long time it was just trying to make money, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay if it's part of your why. But when it becomes your entire why, I think then that's when the problems come. You start making the wrong decisions. And I'll be honest, there was times even 4 or 5 years ago where I was too focused on the money and not the more important parts. And again, that thought process will always be rectified. If you're playing the game big enough and you can fail big enough and you can win big enough, chasing just money that course will always be corrected, because that's not a strong enough why or a path for you to get to where you want to get to. So for me, I just always kind of correct myself by life kicking me in the face or business telling me, hey, that's not the way you're supposed to think. But I make those mistakes less and less. But yeah, I focus a lot more on just trying to. Making money is the byproduct of being great or having a great company. Like it'll happen regardless. It's like if you're going into a test, if you just sit there all day worrying about the test, when you get there, you're not going to do well on it. But if you just study for the test and not even think about that it's coming up, when the test comes, you'll naturally pass it. Money's the same way. It's like you'll make the money, focus on the product, focus on the service, focus on doing a good job, and people want to pay you.
There's so many ways I can go with this. Like I could talk about this all day long, what you just said. There's so much in it that I hope people are understanding. But first of all, let's go to the why.
Okay.
You said it earlier. You didn't say it why, but that's what you were saying. Your why to be great was greater than your why not to fail, right?
Yes.
You said that earlier.
Yes.
But here we go. I always tell people, your why is the most important thing, because you're going to have adversity. You're going to have challenges. But when your why is stronger, you'll do whatever it takes.
Yes.
Now, I think it's fine. A lot of people will tell me what they want. I'll say, why do you want it? And they don't tell me their real why, and I can feel it. And I go, that's not your why. They'll say, I want to help people. Mm-hmm. But when they really want to earn money, I said, don't bullshit me. Yeah. Just say, I want to earn more money. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But they're not creating a strong enough connection, because they're saying, oh, I don't want to say that. I got to hide that. You don't need to hide it. And then you were talking about money when you said in the beginning, I was the same way. Yeah. I mean, when you're as bad of a situation I was in, always in debt, had a foreclosure sticker on my house, I wanted to earn more money. But you know what's interesting? And you didn't say it in these words, but you said it. You said, through my experience, you gain awareness that the money takes care of itself when you focus on getting better, you focus on service. To me, service is the forefront of everything. Yep. Leave every person better off. Now, if you look at your why, how much has it elevated over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it started as simple as making enough money to have my own money in pocket change, right? Not ask for it from mom and dad. And then, wanting all the things that you thought make you look cool, or that, as I'm obviously a guy that girls would like, things like that. And then, you get all those things and you realize that they're not everything that you thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, like, I'm just grateful. The biggest gift that God gave me in life is that he gave me money at a young age, and not because it was money, but because he helped me realize at a young age that it's not all about money. Most people will get to 40, 50 and still be chasing it because they haven't had it, and they still think it's everything that we know it's not, right? And so that's the biggest gift that I've got. Got money early enough to realize, wait a minute, this isn't my why. This is not what I wanted. But it was in the early years. But as I evolved as an entrepreneur, so my character, one of my core values personally, and it's in all my companies, is I have a standard of excellence. And so one of the reasons when I start a company, one of the things I look at is like, can I do it better? Because the people deserve better. I started my black card service company because all the other competitors were just not doing a good enough job. And I'm a very particular guy. I know what I like. And so I know that people who I will service will appreciate that. My investment firm is no different. I want great communication. I want to know what's going on. I want to have a live pulse on my investment. That's what I offer my investors. So as I started evolving as a person, and my standard of excellence started going up, that same standard of excellence I took into my business, and that became more and more of my why. I want to give people great products because that's what I would want.
Well, you used my favorite word, which is standard.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a podcast, 7-Figure Standard. And standard is everything to me. It's the DNA to success. You just made me like you a lot more. Because I will tell you, if people understood how to develop and build standard, I will coach people, and I'll coach them for months, and I'll go, well, tell me about standard. They still don't understand it. It's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's your why. It's a line. You draw a line in the sand. I'm not accepting this. You're bringing everything up to your standard.
Yes.
And tell me if you were talking about your standard, give me the characteristics, your non-negotiables in your standard.
I like things that are clean. I like things that are organized. I believe in being classy, high character. Are you looking for like character attributes? Or you think about just
just whatever you want to say.
Yeah. So like for me, I'll give you an example. Like when I moved to Scottsdale, my mom was like, "The city was made for you."
Yeah.
Right. It's good people with high character. They're ambitious. They're growth minded. They want to treat you well. The city is well manicured. The streets, like where our tax dollars go, right? So you might look at it just as a city. But that's what I look for in people. That's what I look for in my life. That's what I try to implement in my businesses. That's what, if you come into my home, that's what my family's like. So, like you said, your standard is a standard or it's not. And if it is, it applies to everything that you do.
Everything. Like the reason I will tell you why you connect to standard so much, because it's your code of ethics.
Yes.
You said my biggest core value is excellence.
Yes.
So I can understand why you're so connected to standard. I'm so connected to standard. If it's not in harmony with my standard, I don't care if it's people, if it's toys, if it's things, if it's an idea, if it's not in harmony and it's not growing my standard, it's a hard no.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that's what you're talking about with service, with your business.
And people is the biggest one. I think that if you're going to take one thing away from this conversation, if you have a high standard in the people that you choose to surround yourself with, success is inevitable. Because everybody knows that saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I grew up with good people, and I also did a good job of making sure I weeded dramatic, like people who have drama. Like even when I dated in the past, if the girl was drama, I was just like, I just don't speak that language. I can't have anything to do. I don't even know how to understand or comprehend it or exasperate. I can't do any of those things. So like so your friends that you spend time with, that you go out with, like what is you guys' small talk about? Like what do you guys gossip, or do you guys talk about, helping people or investing and things like that? So I think if people had a standard, and people think this is bad, right? It goes back to the thing like, but I don't want to judge people, or that's not right, or everybody's a good person. I'm like, you could think like that, but then you don't have a standard. Yeah. Like have a standard in the people that you choose yourself with. Like, yes, we're all born with family, but that doesn't mean you have to spend all of our time with them. And then friends, yes, you're born in you don't get to choose what high school you went to or college and things like that, but you could still go there and be more selective. In high school, I was actually disliked because I was known for trying out new friend groups.
Different friend groups.
And I didn't understand it then. I thought I was a bad person. When I got older, I was like, I was just going into new groups to see who was quality, and then I came out if I didn't find anything. That's what I was searching. And I didn't have a mentor to tell me. If I had you, then you'd be like, oh, you're just going out there to see if there's anybody good, and you're coming back out. And I met two people in high school, and they helped me build my first company for 10 years.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? It's because people don't understand. It's awareness. And you were aware of who you were on some level.
Yeah.
Even when you were young, you were aware, like, I want to see what fits me, right?
Yes, yes.
And if people really observed what they really wanted, they would make different choices.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, I always say, we're either all in or all out. If you're 99% in, you're 100% out. Mm-hmm. You have to be 100% in and keep working on the pursuit of greatness, the pursuit of building your character. So if you look at your pursuit, what do you think were the biggest success attributes you developed over the years? I mean, you're young. You're in your early 30s.
Yes. So I have two friends that made me. So I was always ambitious. I was always, I knew how to make people laugh, or people respected me for my work ethic, things like that. But I didn't realize the value of character, right? Like, how do you leave people after you interact with them? How do they feel about you? And nothing intentional. Like, how do they naturally just feel after they've interacted with you? And I didn't mistreat people, but I didn't pay attention to going out of my way to make them feel great. And so I had two people that really impacted my life. And it's a funny story, and I'll go into it real quick. I have this friend, which you met, Kais, nicest guy I know. Not as successful as I'd like him to be, but like just the greatest guy. Everybody loves him. And when we used to go out, all the girls would flock to him. And so I didn't understand it at early 20s. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, I have a company, I have money, my hair's done, I wear expensive clothes, like I had the car, I had the apartment. I'm like, why don't they love me? It all makes sense on paper. Yeah. Why don't they love me the way I think they should? Why do they love him? And when I got to my mid-20s, I had my first biggest epiphany, like my quarter life crisis. And it's like, as you go older, you get, people don't care how much money you make. People don't care about any of those things. It's like, how do you make them feel? Yeah. After they are done interacting with you, how do they feel that? How do they leave that? And I had him, Kais, and at the time my roommate, greatest guy I know, has a great company called Trust and Will, very successful. We went to college together. We were in the same fraternity. His name is Cody Barbo. Everybody loved him. Doesn't matter what religion denomination, what ethnicity, everybody loved him. And he had everything that I had on paper that I mentioned earlier, plus everybody loved him. And the only difference was he always was present when he spoke to them. He always made them feel good. He went out of his way. He knew when their birthdays were. And I realized, wait a minute, all these things that I'm doing are irrelevant without character. Character is the most important thing. How do you make people feel? If you can win at that, all these other things become easy.
I got a funny story for you. So I went to this event. This is 2010. And you're there for a week. And, you like certain people, other people you didn't talk to as much. So after the first few days, there was about 100 people at this event. And they put you around in a room in a circle. And you had to go to every person had to walk around. You're a giver or a taker. And so I go, oh shit. Because I knew and it was one of the best lessons I ever learned. It changed the game for me. Yeah. Because I realized I was a conditional giver at that time.
Oh, okay.
And because for some people, I gave attention, I gave focus. Others I prejudged. Because I wouldn't like them. Or from that moment on, it changed the game for me. And I love what Maya Angelou says. She said, people don't care what you say to them. They remember how you made them feel. And that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
It is, sometimes you have these emotional impacts. That was one for me. These were two for you that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
But they stay with us the rest of our life if we're paying attention.
Yeah.
Instead of, what I mean paying attention, we're detached from our ego.
Yes.
We're actually saying, hold on a second. This is an area I get to improve.
Yeah.
Because we want to constantly improve.
Absolutely.
That's, I can relate with you so much in this.
Yeah.
You're still finding yourself.
I was just about to say that. I still look at myself in the mirror and I see myself as a little selfish person. But if you ask anybody who's interacted with me for the last 10 years, they think I'm the least selfish person. Like, they're like, oh, this MD is very selfless. Because it's something that I'm actively working on. Like, it's like I'm like, by every moment or every interaction that I get, I'm just present. I'm like, okay, I can go this fork on the road and be selfish, or I could be selfless where I want to be. You do that enough time, right? Your identity changes, your character changes. Sure. But the work doesn't stop. I think it's also, I'm a natural taker myself. I am, because when you grow up with nothing, you're kind of like, okay, how do I fend for myself? And then you're like, wait a minute, but I'm not in that mode anymore. But it still requires a lot of rewiring for a long time. I don't know if I'll ever be truly a selfless person, but I'll always work on it.
See, I don't agree with that, because my experiences with you has been the exact opposite. I have never once seen you as a taker. I've seen you as opposite. So that's news to me. Like, I've had several encounters with you. That's not any of the encounters I've personally had, but it's interesting because you know you.
Correct.
And what's interesting about identity, because you said identity, I'll give you an idea that'll break you free right now. You don't need to fight for everything. Okay, that's going down to old conditioning since you were young. That's your motivator right now. I've got to fight for everything.
Yeah.
I will tell you, you're going to work a lot more effortless trusting. And the more, because you trust yourself.
Yeah.
But you got to trust the universe.
Yes.
Not conditionally trust it. Because when you're struggling, I used to do the same thing. That's why I could see it in you. So I did it. And you're like, oh, I got to grind. I got to fight for everything. But then when you let go of the fight, you allow. and play with that for yourself.
No, I already see. I already have a few instances in my mind that are already kind of where that is happening.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it'll really flourish. I mean, you know what's so interesting? I can remember, how old are you, 35?
34, yeah.
34. Okay, 34. I'm 46. I'll be 47 in a couple weeks. Like the difference in lessons from when I was 34 to 46, I mean, at 34, ignorant, overweight, I mean, just getting by, just wanting to, you know, at that time I was committed. I started changing in a good way.
Nice.
You know, but I'll tell you, the direction you're headed is going to be phenomenal. I mean, you're just getting started. Like if you think where you are right now, you have no idea where you're about to go. You're on a rocket launch, because the reason I know that, when MD calls me, or when we're around in a social environment, he's always picking my brain, always picking my brain.
Yep.
Well, that's where I know where somebody's going, you know, and that's what people are doing with you.
Well, I always say I never want to waste a relationship. Like I know, first of all, you always offer your time and your thoughts, which I appreciate, but I have this person who has already gone through this path and had all this success, and they have offered many times to say, hey, I'm here for you. So then it's like, at that point, it's like if someone invites you somewhere multiple times and you keep saying no, eventually they're gonna stop inviting you. For me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I already have the friend part. We already have that part down. But it's like, okay, but you're also a resource for me, so I'm not gonna waste that resource. It's available, and I'm gonna make the most of it.
Yeah, well, you do an excellent job of building relationships. I'll tell you that. You know what's interesting? What are your core values towards building a relationship? Because your businesses are all relationship businesses.
Yes.
At the highest level. What do you think your core values are that I want this relationship, I want it to keep elevating and growing, or, you know, it's done, the path is over with this, I got to move on?
It's a great question. You know, I've bought out many partners. Even at my young age, I've bought out, and the lesson there is you didn't do a good enough job in the beginning making sure that your core values align. You were only focused on the money. And if I would have slowed that down, I would have had more success, and I would have had, you know, just like in life, in a relationship, there's nothing like a great partner.
Yeah.
Like a great partner makes everything better and easier,
Yeah.
but a bad partner makes everything worse. So, and business is no different. And I recently have had the taste of good partners, but you know, going up in my career, I didn't have them very much. And if I had my core values, it wasn't until 2 years ago when I sat down with you that I really started looking, that I actually, you know, put it down. What are my core values? And then you think them out loud, and then you start applying them. And now everything that I do is core value. Like a friend that I meet, a new client. Do I want to do business with them? Okay, well, how do they do business? Okay, they don't. So my core values, again, like our standard of excellence. You know, do you give a shit? Do you care? Because I care. I care about everything. I care about, you know, the cologne, the person, you know, what time I showed up. Did I show up on time? You know, everything, every little detail matters to me. So if it doesn't matter to the other person, we're already not aligned.
Yeah.
Number two, I communicate, right? I told you I'm going to be here at what time today, and I told you you tell me, okay, well then text me on your way. I said, okay, I'm on my way and I'm going to arrive at this time. I arrive at that. That's important because I respect you.
Yeah.
I value you. I value your time, and you value your time. So if you were always late to stuff, I'm saying, okay, he doesn't value his time. Why would I value his?
Yeah.
So communication to me is such a big deal. If you cannot tell me when you're disappointed in me, or unhappy with me, or happy with me, or tell me that my outfit looks good, if you're not that person, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
Because life is too short. You know.
So we're similar core values. I think everything starts with core values.
Yeah.
It always starts with our philosophy. Our philosophy changes our thinking right away. I have an event called World Class Wealth, and the first thing I do with everybody there is core values.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are business owners, and they've never thought about their core values. Most people haven't.
Yeah.
But that's where it becomes easy, because you say, oh, this is going to grow me, or it's going to contract me. Then you say no if it's going to contract you.
It's a filter system. It's great.
It is, and it's easy, and it makes your life so effortless. I try to simplify everything. I think complexity is the enemy of greatness. I think it's the enemy of success, because success is just simple things. Like nature teaches that. If we go out in my backyard, we're in my office right now. If we went in my backyard and we planted a seed, we just water it, it'll grow. Yeah. It's the same thing with relationships, same thing with ideas. Yeah. What idea are you in love with right now?
You know, the idea, I heard it, thanks for the invite. You invited me to one of your World Class Wealth, weeks, and it's something that I've heard many times, but when I heard it at your event, it really stayed with me. It was, the thing that got you here is not the same thing that's going to get you to the next level.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have this little clicker. I walk around, and the clicker reminds me to chant. It's my mantra right now. Mm-hmm. Because at everything that I do, it may need to change.
Yeah.
Every interaction, maybe the way I eat, maybe the people I talk to. I even changed the sport I play. Mm-hmm. I said, I keep doing the same things over and over again. I'm trying to figure out why things aren't changing. Like, I have a great company. You know my goal, $50 million exit, right? And you wanted to make it bigger. But working hard on my businesses is not going to give me a $50 million exit.
No.
You don't get there. You don't get there without people. You don't get there without the right support. You don't get there without. So the way I'm doing things needs to change, and that could be, just not personality, but like activities that I'm doing, environments that I'm in, the way I fly. It could be anything, where I eat. Yeah. So I keep saying what I heard from you and learned from you at the World Class Wealth week is the same thing that got me here is not what's going to get me to the next level. So that's what I'm really kind of actively working on. I picked up golf. Sometimes you want to hang out with a mentor.
Yeah.
He may would love to hang out with you, but he's not going to have anything to tell you more than 30, 45 minutes or an hour. But he wouldn't mind playing golf with you for 4 hours.
That's right.
So now you get to very organically, naturally have a conversation, maybe ask questions that pop up in your head. You have 4 hours together, right? You have to put yourself in environments. You have to change your activities. And then, so for me, that's what I'm working on right now actively.
No, that's great. You said a big thing that I remember saying at World Class Wealth. What got you here is not going to take you there. Well, we have to release our past thinking. What happens for successful people, they're still living on their laurels of what got them here. Yeah. And they're expecting it to get there. It doesn't, and it creates frustration because they're comparing it to an outcome without growing their identity.
Yep.
And this is going to be great, I'm telling you. I want you to leave everybody with 2 or 3 of your greatest attributes that you learned that took you from where you were in high school, buying your first business as a senior, till now. What advice would you give them?
I'm a very positive person. If you're around me, you leave better than you when you walked in. I smile, I bring good energy. I don't ever bring you down, I only bring you up. So everybody wants to give you a chance. Every interaction I walk in, if someone says, if you go to the bank, they won't do that for you. I always think, let's go try. Because I know that I'm going to walk in with a different energy. Forget the belief, it's just an energy thing. Everybody can control energy. You may not have money. Yeah, you may not have this, you may not have that. But if you go in there and you smile, and you're in a good mood and you're positive, I've had so many things go my way that one day there will be a movie. Free private flights just by asking. So many things have gone my way because I just go to people and I have the belief that, hey, I'm a good person. I have good intentions. I smile. So if you're a positive person, if you're a happy person, the kind of people that will invite you places just to have you around, the circles that you'll get into, the business opportunities that it will create, and you can control that. It doesn't cost anything.
Attitude.
Yes,
the most powerful discipline anybody could create. It is so contagious, and I would agree with that. I always challenge people to be the most positive person in their environment. And it's not fake, it's authentic.
Yes.
Look for the good in everything.
Yes.
You've said a lot of things that I have a part of my core values. You said attitude, leave everybody better off than you found them, service, and constantly getting better.
Yes.
Well, I will tell you this, I've really enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us. I'm telling you, you have to pay attention to what this man is saying. He's giving you nuggets that are huge nuggets. I know it, and I want you to go back and listen to this again and again, because this is one last thing that I believe in. Somebody came to my house last week, and I was mentoring him, and he's a young kid, and he said, do you really believe everybody can have it all? And I said, yes. But not everybody wants to pay the price, and that price is whatever it takes.
Yes.
They have to want it badly enough. I'm going to leave you with that. Do you believe everybody can have it all?
I believe that everybody can have it all, but having it all is different for every person.
That's right.
It's not the same. Having it all for me may be completely different than having it all for you.
For sure.
For me, having it all is a balance, right? Like let's just say if I had to choose between being a billionaire and not being in shape or healthy or, in love with my wife or, a beautiful family, I wouldn't do it. But if I could have 50 million and get to be all the other things that are also important to me, that's me having it all, right? So you got to figure out, like in the beginning, what's your why? Why are you doing it? I think if people figure out what their why is, they won't get knocked off course that fast. They'll have a North Star. They'll know where they're going. So everybody can have it all. Figure out what your have it all is.
All right, one more thing. I know I said one more, but you just triggered something in me. Because family has always been my why.
Yeah.
I know it's your why.
Yes.
Tell them about what that why has done for you. Because I think this is very important. I should have asked this earlier because we're very aligned with this.
So I'll break it down this way, especially for those of you who have great parents. I have great parents. The biggest lottery that you can hit is being born and you have great parents. You have no say. You just come into the world and either they're great or they're awful.
Sure.
So for me, I had great parents. And I believe life is like a relay race. And my dad ran the first lap. My mom, they ran the first or second lap. And they did a great job. And now they've handed me the baton. And that's my joy, is like these immigrants, especially if you're like the oldest child like me, you know, their dreams are your dreams. They kind of overlap a little bit. And maybe their life felt incomplete. Like my dad maybe didn't get that successful business that he wanted. So now he's tagging me in. So I look at it that way, and my why gets strong because it's not just for me, it's them. They did what they could. Now it's my turn to do what I can. They were selfless. And so for me, that's like, my why is, my fire will always be ignited. And I always tell people, if your why is not as strong as it would be, good luck competing with me, because my why is very strong.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, thanks. We're done now.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
appreciate it.
Great.